Dana Holgorsen is back from his month-long vacation, and he's ready to roll into 2025.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. It is Thursday, July 31st, last day of the month. Hope everybody stayed dry out there this morning. Some big rain around parts of Omaha, if that's where you are. I'm Mitch Sherman. I'm in Omaha. Connor Happer, 1620 The Zone, is with me. I work for The Athletic. Yes, in Omaha. Today in Nebraska football, practice number 4 of the preseason is about to begin. As we record this, by the time you listen, it will have begun. The Huskers have broken out the shoulder pads as of yesterday, Wednesday, to add to their helmets. They are also wearing shirts and pants and various other items of clothing. So we will hear today, after Nebraska's 4th practice of the preseason, from offensive coordinator Dana Holgorsen, as Connor teased there in the open. He is back from his tour of the Swiss Alps and wherever else it was, the Key West, places that Dana went, the Austrian Grand Prix. These are all places that Coach Holgorsen visited in his downtime this month. So maybe we'll get a question in about that. But, of course, we want to focus on football things first. Daikiel Shorts, Nebraska's wide receivers coach, the protege, I suppose you could say, of Coach Holgorsen, will speak with the media, and then 2 to 3 Nebraska football players. So what do you look forward to, Connor, in the first crack at Dana and Daikiel Shorts, and maybe like a visit with Corey Barney, Dane Key? I suppose that they're likely candidates to take the microphone.
I was really looking forward to you going on your tangent about shorts and shoulder pads and helmets and how they're wearing other items of clothes. It felt like there was something there. Or would you like your platform to go off on this?
I kind of edited myself on that one. I don't understand sometimes. It bothers me. I guess I understand. It bothers me when we hear, like, if Nebraska sends out a practice report, or there's the TV guy on the 10 o'clock news. The Huskers practiced for 12 minutes today in shorts. No, I'm sorry, in helmets and shoulder pads. Like, that is disgusting. Like, can you at least put some pants on? Like,
there is an implication that they are wearing pants, but I like it's very fun. I love this take by you. This is hilarious.
Yeah, they are always in pants.
They have pants.
Today is no different.
But I will say this. I noticed this. I've been looking at some pictures that have come out from various other camps across the country. The pants. So I'm talking about even when they go to fully padded practices, meaning fully padded and closed, by the way. So shoulder pads, helmets.
That'll be Saturday.
And football pants. So let's see if Nebraska has this. The pants, the football pants, are now not only above the knee as they have been over the last couple of years. They are like mid to upper thigh now, and the compression shorts that they wear underneath the football pants like come out. You could see them.
They're longer than the pants.
They're longer than the pants. Yes, I've seen some pictures from around various camps around the country. I'm like, I don't know what this is doing to protect you in any way, shape, or form. Not that the football pants, give you a whole lot of coverage there.
I can understand going above the knee. I mean, you don't really notice it in a game. Like, you watch football and they're playing football and, okay, you see more of their legs. But I can understand, unless you're going to go down to like the ankle area, like, you don't want your pants to end like right below your knee. I would think that would cause unnecessary tension that could slow you down if you run.
And that's why they did it in the first place. Like,
free the knee.
Yeah, that's why they did it. But coaches, you'll still hear old school coaches talk about how, well, back in my day, they used to have actual knee pads that would cover the knees. And you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, everybody's going to be fine. But
there are instances where that would seem important. Like if you're a running back and you're running through a pile, and like it might help you at times to have knee pads on, but nothing they do now. The game is so fast, they want to do nothing to slow them down. And fortunately, we're still at a place where we have not gotten to a place where they have fully gone without pants, but so that's not coming anytime soon.
Okay.
Saturday is the day if you want to see Nebraska in full uniform.
Here's what I want to hear from Dana Holgorsen as we try to get this train back on the tracks. I mean, I don't know if this question comes directly or if it comes by, eventually you sort of get an answer to this, but I think the big picture thing on everybody's mind with that offense and specifically Daikiel Short's wide receiver room, tell me why this group is going to be better than last year's group, right? Like, well, there was a lot of, positive conversation about those two transfer wide receivers that they brought in last year. And I can't tell you that it didn't work. I think those guys, Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair, were pretty good players. And obviously you had a revelation in Ja'Cory Barney as a freshman last year. So you replace those two transfer receivers with two other transfer receivers. One, Dane Key is the Jamal Banks of this group, like really productive guy. He's been around college football for a long time. He's going to probably be your go-to guy. And another who is a little bit younger than like Isaiah Nair was in Isaiah Hunter. And then Barney is still there. Year 2 Barney is going to be a little bit better than year 1 Barney. But there's more after that, and we'll get into that during this conversation. But I need the pitch on why this picture is better than last year's picture.
So here's what they ended up with if we're talking about Banks and Nair. Jamal Banks, 44 catches, 587 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Isaiah Nair, 34 catches, 455 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I think specifically in the case of Isaiah Nair, if you would have said coming into the season that he was going to catch 5 touchdowns, 455 yards, you'd have been like, all right, that's a little low, but it's not terrible. And I think in the case of Nair, it's not what he did, it's more what he didn't do. And I don't want to put all of the emphasis on the dropped pass against Iowa that would have won the game for Nebraska in Iowa City, but that's definitely in your mind when you consider not just what Isaiah Nair's production was like in his senior season at Nebraska or the 2024 season at Nebraska. I think it impacts your view, my view of the receivers as a whole in that season. So yeah, Banks, 44, 587, 3 touchdowns. I mean, the way that he started the year and some of the hype that we heard about him in the offseason about what a great teammate he was, and he was just one of the more enjoyable Nebraska football players to be around in several years, certainly on that roster. He wasn't putting up all Big Ten numbers. He didn't have Trey Palmer numbers. He didn't have Trey Palmer's athleticism. He didn't have Stanley Morgan's numbers. And I'd say he did have Stanley Morgan's, a lot of his skills and some of the physical attributes for Jamal Banks were better than a guy like Stanley Morgan. So I think that Nebraska's, I will be in the camp of people who say that Nebraska's receivers in 2025, like as we walk into August of 2025, are better positioned to have a big year than they were in 24 at this time. And honestly, part of it is because of Daikiel Shorts.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And then Holgorsen in the offense too. Like the narrative emerged as Nebraska's offense was sort of cratering in on itself, in the middle of the season last year before they hired Dana Holgorsen, of like, hey, these wide receivers aren't getting any separation and they got to get open and all that stuff. Like people pinned it all on those two guys, and they shouldn't have, for the record. I some of it is on the offensive coordinator to be able to, scheme things up to get those guys open. And then, I think a lot of it was on the quarterback too. Sometimes Dylan Rhule in the middle portion of last year just really got pretty skittish and kind of refused to force balls into places and took the really, 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 really safe option too many times. And it almost cost him a couple of games. It may have cost him a game or two. So I think all of that is set up for the conversation going into 2025 with that group. And that would be my reasoning, like if I'm pitching people on why this thing is going to get better, it's because of all three of the arms of that: Holgorsen, Rhule, and the receivers themselves.
Dane Key's numbers, just for the record, each of the last 3 years were arguably better than what Banks and Nair put up last year at Nebraska. Either more receptions, more yardage, or more touchdowns in each one of those 3 years for Dane Key. And then Hunter last year as a redshirt freshman at Cal, 40 catches, 578 yards, 5 touchdowns. So those guys already coming into Nebraska having produced more than what the Huskers got out of their top 2 receivers a year ago. And I think that they're an upgrade, and I think they're definitely an upgrade within the offense. And then you have year 2, Ja'Cory Barney, plus you have Cortez Mills, who can kind of step into that role that Ja'Cory Barney filled last year. I think they're going to prove to be somewhat similar players, not entirely the same skill sets, but somewhat different players. Somewhat similar players, and just like the explosive aspect that they have. Janiran Bonner is a year older. Yep. You start to get into some spots after the top 4 to 5 where you look at Jeremiah Jones. Is Demetrius Bell going to be finally healthy? Quinn Clark has got great size. Keelan Smith is another guy with good size. I think they're deeper. They're more experienced in this system, and I think they're better at the top end. And I think they have a more equipped position coach and a better offensive coordinator and a more experienced quarterback.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of things. So I was just looking at Banks versus Key. So Banks in 2023 at Wake Forest had 59 catches for 653 yards. And then Key last year at Kentucky. So this is both the years before they ended up at Nebraska.
Right. Banks took a little step down.
Yeah. 47 catches for 715 yards. So it's really quite similar seasons. Banks had more catches. Some of that is just due to the offense that you're in. So like you could make that case. I agree with you. Like I think there's more potential with this group, and there's a little bit more upside as well. And I think the big picture is you have the quarterback in his second year, and you have the offensive coordinator for it. So that would be the reasoning for me. When we come back, Mitch, how many do you need? Right? Like as we continue to talk about the wide receivers a little bit. You just mentioned a few of them there. We know what the sort of top 4 or 5 look like. Who comes up next, and more on the offense, the offensive coordinator, and all that will come today at practice here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
Right now, a message from a new sponsor of the Locked On Nebraska podcast, Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's with workouts, long days on campus or at work, staying focused in back-to-back classes, we're looking at students here. Hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven formula for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. I keep a few packets of Drip Drop in my computer bag or my backpack, whatever it is that I'm carrying around on a given day. Today, it'll be my computer bag as I head down to Memorial Stadium in that area. It has saved me more than once from a midday crash or just becoming dehydrated. Drip Drop can become your go-to drink supplement during long summer days or when you know that you're just going to be sweating it out. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up before the heat hits hard.
Extra special shout out to Drip Drop. They kept me hydrated this weekend when I was playing golf. They sent me a big bag. They sent us a big bag in the mail of all the Drip Drop flavors. Got it, and I'm like halfway through that sucker already. It hasn't been very long either. So shout out to those guys.
Absolutely.
All right. Here we go. Back into camp conversations here. So any further thoughts on that? You sort of set it up before the break. You know that Dane Key, Isaiah Hunter, Corey Barney are going to be there. And then there is
Bonner and Mills.
Jameer and Bonner is, a role in some way, shape, or form. And then there's this consensus, I think, that Cortez Mills will probably work his way onto the field in some way, shape, or form. We'll see how that turns out in terms of a depth chart. But like, what happens after really the top 3 or 4 will be a fascinating story to track this camp.
I think it's a top 5. I really do. I think that when people get to see Nebraska in full pads and pants and shirts on Saturday night, you're going to see that group of 5 with the ones. And then I think there's going to be a second group that's like with the mix of units that will eventually make up the 2s and 3s. And that is, well, it's Demetrius Bell if he's practicing. And I think he's going to be back soon. He wasn't at practice on day 1. Maybe he has returned. And that's a question, absolutely, for Daikiel Shorts today is, how do you feel about Demetrius Bell? What have you seen of him? Can he be somebody that's a part of your preparation for week 1 coming up here in 4 weeks from today, Connor? 4 weeks from today. It's Thursday. Whoa. Nebraska plays on August 28th. It's July 31st. All right, we should have commemorated that. So is Demetrius Bell a part of that? And you have the true freshman, Jeremiah Jones, who's working his way into just understanding the offense. How's that going? Because physically, he's at the top of the list of everybody on not just your receiver core, but like he's there with, a couple of your defensive ends as the most impressive looking athletes on this team. Quinn Clark, Keelan Smith, guys who redshirted last year. Like, I think that 2 or 3 of them are going to join the other 5 and create a 7 or 8 man rotation at receiver. And we'll see if my feeling on that, my opinion, matches up with what Daikiel Short says today. Will he be prepared to play 7 or 8 receivers right off the bat? Or does it have to become a thing where you start to have some attrition, some injuries, some guys get banged up before you get down that far on the depth chart?
It's an interesting position group, that's for sure. So we'll get some hints about that today with Daikiel Shorts and Dana Holgorsen, who's speaking today post-practice down in Lincoln. I'm curious to hear from Dana Holgorsen just on the subject of Dylan Rhule, right? They know each other a little bit more now, and they're familiar with each other. I wonder, there he is. There's Rhule. We should Photoshop Holgorsen into that picture too. I don't think he's staying in the dorms though.
He's not. No.
Just like what the expectations are for him, and maybe, I don't know if you want to compare him to any old Dana Holgorsen quarterbacks or things like that, because what they're doing here is a little bit different as we go through the slideshow of Dylan pictures now. Obviously what they're doing is a little bit different from what he's done in his time as an offensive coordinator and a head coach at other places. So, I mean, there's that factor, but maybe a comparison to where he's at in his progression compared to how he saw other quarterbacks progress, because he very rarely has bad quarterback play. He very rarely has bad offenses. He almost exclusively has very good offenses. So, I mean, I think, Dylan Rhule is a really big part of that, and I wonder what he feels that he's going to do this season going into his sophomore year.
All right, here's something I want to talk to Dana Holgorsen about. I remember him talking last December about this was pre-bowl game, and it was maybe the only time in Dana's stint so far at Nebraska where I felt a real level of stress from him, because he was looking at where Nebraska was at on the offensive line. And it was an important period for recruiting there, mainly in the portal. I believe Nebraska had secured its 2025 signing class at this point, and the Huskers were working on replacements up front for some departed offensive linemen. And they're trying to restock that thing. And in Dana's system, like any offense, you've got to have people who can protect the quarterback and block for the run game. Otherwise, all of the schemes that you draw up are going to be a mess. And Nebraska had not at that point secured the commitments of Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame and Elijah Pritchett from Alabama. And Dana he met the question head on and said, we need to find some players who can come in and help us right away on the offensive line. So now that they're here and he's had a full spring with them and he had the OTAs to work with this group in the month of June, and they got their time, the players did, which is an important time in July for them to be together, especially, I would argue, the offensive line, just because of the unity and the togetherness that's required for that group, the trust that they have to have with each other. They had that time in July where they were away from the coaches, and Dana comes back and he sees this, and he's working with this group, this offense, this 11-person offense when they get together for teamwork. What does he think? It's not a finished product, but it's like it's as close, certainly, as he's seen to a product that they need to have ready to play a game in 4 weeks. What does he think of this 5 to 8 player group that they're going to rely on August 28th?
Yeah, I mean, that's like we said, it all sort of works in concert with each other, and I can't really think of a position group on offense where I don't think they're better. I don't think they're better than they were 8 months ago. You know what I mean? Like
everywhere.
I think they're better pretty much everywhere.
That's a great point.
Maybe you can make an argument at running back in the grand scheme of things, but
yeah. Even at running back last year when they had Gabe Ervin and Dante Dowdell and Ramir Johnson, yeah, it was more depth, it was more experience, but like it wasn't the Gabe Ervin of 2022. And Dante Dowdell, he was very good in the Colorado game, but it wasn't a consistent thing. So yeah, it's hard to say going into this into August. Yeah, they're better at running back than they were last year. They're not, but the promise is there, I think, to have a number one who is more defined than they had at any point last year.
Yeah, I mean, they had so many options. They were trying to do so many different things, and they played 3 or 4 of them at the beginning. Like, I think that could be a really good learning lesson from the first half of last year. Not that Dana Holgorsen would make the same mistake because he's a really experienced offensive coordinator, but it's like the more options you have, you could kind of get paralyzed by that. So maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that Emmett's the only guy there. I would like to have that safety net and comfort behind him with a guy that they could trust behind him. But they're developing that and finding that at the moment, and that's similar to what a lot of teams are doing right now as well. But yeah, I think you have a pretty clear idea of who's playing and who's going to give you what as far as production on offense so far.
How about a question too for Holgorsen on Isaiah Mosey and that move to running back? I don't think that's something that Dana like enters into lightly and just says, hey, there's an athlete over there, like let's just move him to running back because we're a little shallow on the depth. Like I think that a lot of thought goes into that and went into it, going back to the spring. So not something that we've had a chance to talk to Holgorsen about yet. So that'll come up today for sure.
All right, let's take a break. A recruiting note that we'd like to pass along, and looking ahead at what's coming up on Friday and Saturday for Nebraska football after this.
Welcome back. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you on this Thursday. Remember to get your mailbag questions in for us. We will be answering questions for our Friday mailbag show that will be out tomorrow. LockedOnNEB@gmail.com is the place to send them. A note from Wednesday at practice. I saw, thank you, Abdul Muhammad, the fixture in Omaha's youth and high school football community, ex-Nebraska wide receiver. Since we're spending the day talking about wide receivers, it's good to give a shout out to Abdul, friend of the show, friend of all podcasts. Absolutely great guy. Abdul tweeted a photo of Torrey Pittman, the Omaha Central junior, who, if you don't know this, you should know this and get to know this. Torrey Pittman is a 5-star recruit in the class of 2027. Yes, a 5-star recruit right here in the state of Nebraska. Been since Baker Steinkuhler in the 2008 class, off the top of my head. Since Nebraska, the state of Nebraska last had a 5-star recruit. I mean, to find one in Omaha, I don't believe that Eric Crouch was a 5-star recruit. You may have to go back to Amon Green in 1995. So this is a rare kind of prospect. He's got offers from the who's who of college football programs. Number 1 rated safety in the country, and he will be a junior this year at Central. Was at Nebraska practice, decked out in red. Of course, he's a huge target for Nebraska. Players like Trey Taylor, who are in that class, are hard at work to. Trey Taylor's the only player in that class. I assume he's hard at work in trying to help Nebraska land Torrey Pittman. The main competition at this juncture in his recruiting process does appear to be Iowa, although you can never discount things when the likes of Michigan or various SEC programs come into it. And I imagine that Torrey Pittman's going to have a choice to go just about anywhere by the time he chooses to make his commitment, which could very well be like next summer. I don't know where he's at in the process, but anyway, something to keep an eye on. And, while Nebraska has had a different approach here in this class of 2026 to recruiting in state, its intensity and the importance of landing this in-state player in the 2027 class cannot be and should not be understated. Very important for the Huskers to get.
This is not one where you're like, I just think we have a better player at that position, because you literally don't at this point. He's the number 1 safety in the 2027 class. So very cool. Very cool for Omaha, my alma mater, Omaha Central High School. And he's only 17 years younger than me, which seems very odd to think about. Class of 2027 is pretty weird, but he's
2 years younger than my daughter. It's like, so
he's younger than everybody.
Hold my beer.
Right. And then elsewhere this week, so Dana Holgorsen, Daikiel Shorts will talk today for Nebraska football. And then Friday, the Big Ten Network bus will roll into town. I don't know if they do bus anymore or what, but I know they have 2 separate legs of the camp.
I think they bring a van.
Yeah. So I don't know which BTN analysts Nebraska will be assigned here, but a few Big Ten Network personalities will roll into town and have their observations from practice.
Yeah, we'll find that out today. It used to be, back before the Big Ten expanded to 96 teams, that you would get Jerry DiNardo and Howard Griffith and Dave Revson. They would go to every campus, but that's mathematically impossible now in the month of
I guess it is half. Like last
it is
year,
August.
DiNardo went to the West Coast tour last year, and then the rest of them. So maybe they split it up like literally 14 and 4. Just the 4 West Coast schools get their own thing.
I'm going to be on BTN Friday with this. This reminded me of this with Rick Pizzo at some point. I believe the show's at 11 Central. So they're going to have me on, zooming in to talk about Nebraska Day on BTN, because the guys are stopping in Lincoln, as we're talking about here. So they get to go to an entire practice. They get to sit down with Matt Rhule. They'll probably sit down with Dylan Raiola.
I would imagine, I think, too.
Yeah, I'd imagine they're going to get Dana and John Butler. I'll be interested to hear their take on John Butler. I'm going to be interested to hear a lot of people's takes on John Butler as we get further along through the season, and he becomes a staple of our weekly Nebraska football content consumption. He's an interesting guy. Like I look forward to getting to know him more, because I think we're going to get some head scratching things, just some notable things from Coach Butler. He's a wild card. I mean, probably more than Dana, which is an odd thing to say. Like, he's going to keep it interesting. I think Butler is. I hope he does, because he could go into that mode where he kind of just like goes into a shell. And I think that's a little bit of what we got from him the first time that he talked, because he was very new to Nebraska, didn't know who was asking the questions, didn't necessarily know all that much about the personnel. And that's, I'm talking like way back last August, maybe the first time that he had anything to say, when he was just the DB's coach. But some of his personality started to come out, and you can see a little bit like why the players, why they like him, why they gravitate to him, because it's just, I don't know. It's hard to describe. I'm going to try to describe that more as the year goes on. But I'll be interested to see the BTN guys take on Coach Butler. They're going to love talking to Dana for sure. And what they have to say about. They focus a lot, especially DiNardo if he's here. I feel like they focus a lot on what the lines look like. That's a big part of it, and understandably in the Big Ten.
I think Nebraska has two coordinators who are they're old school coordinators in the sense that remember the coordinators, they didn't, this is before like the nice hair, nice glasses, tall, skinny offensive coordinator who was a X's and O's guru came along.
Are you talking about Mark Whipple?
I'm talking. No, I'm not talking about Mark Whipple, but like the old archetype for coordinators is like kind of the grizzled, like literally both of them, Butler and Holgorsen, at one point in their career or right now had skullets. So
yes.
There's an archetype there. Those guys are themselves, right? All the time. And yeah, there might be some crazy things that happen in the in-between.
Yeah. What do you got any predictions? Anything that's going to come out of this visit tomorrow? What are people going to be talking about after Nebraska's day on the Big Ten Network?
I think the thing that they say every year, there's only like a couple years I can remember that they haven't said this. Is like, yeah, this is about as good as they've looked. This is. I think they look really good enough on the lines. The schedule lines up and all that stuff. So I would expect a little bit more of the same. I would expect confirmation of the things that we've been talking about, all off season long from those guys. But I don't know. It's cool because they just get one practice and it's a total parachute in, and who knows what might be going on that day. But they get to talk to coaches, right? And the coaches will kind of set them straight if their observations are off.
If I was on that crew and I came in and I'm just saying on what I think I would see, the things that would stand out, the size, and like Nebraska's offensive line looks like a Big Ten offensive line. There's not even any question about it. Like you got guys there who played at Notre Dame and Alabama last year, and they look like an offense. They look like a Big Ten or like an NFL style offensive line. That's going to stand out. They'll talk about that. I think they'll talk about Dylan Raiola's arm strength and his ability to put the ball downfield in a spot. I think they'll talk about Emmett Johnson and his upper body, just like how big he's gotten and how that might help his ability to run between the tackles. And I think that you take your pick here. I don't know if it's going to be the linebackers or the secondary, but one of those groups I would say is going to catch their attention with the upgrade that Nebraska's made in athleticism. If it's just me, I think they've made a bigger upgrade in athleticism at the linebacker spot.
Me too.
But the secondary is a deep athletic group as well. And I don't know like what kind of preconceived ideas the BTN guys are going to come into Lincoln with about the secondary. If they don't have any, then they're probably going to look at that group too, with Sierra Wright and Andrew Marshall and Deshaun Singleton, the Buford brothers, Caleb Benning, Hartzog, all of those guys, and say that's, they're going to be able to cover people.
Yep. Saturday in Memorial Stadium, there will be full pads, pants, shirts, mesh practice jerseys, and helmets in front of a couple thousand fans. This is the NIL. This is the 1890 Big Red preview where just for the low price of $20 per adult, you could get in and watch Nebraska football practice. And then it's $30 if you want to sit in the West Club, by the way. I wonder how many people will show up. They're also selling beer at this. So it's sort of a modified scrimmage that they're going to be doing Saturday night Memorial Stadium.
Turning into a little bit of a party, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I believe this is the debut of beer in a football related event at Memorial Stadium.
You can get in for $10 if you're high school age and under.
Yes.
$20 adult general admission, $30 for club tickets. Okay.
All goes to a good cause. And by good cause, I mean players.
Also, Fan Day is Saturday from 4:30 to 6 at the Hawks Championship Center. So if you want to meet some of the Huskers, maybe you want to meet Ja'Cory Barney,
maybe
head out to Fan Day before the Big Red preview event, which starts at 6:30. All right.
There you go.
That's our public service message from Nebraska Athletics.
Reminder, get in your mailbag questions. We're going to probably do that today. on Thursday. So get those in as soon as you hear this. Don't wait any longer. So we'll have that podcast coming for you. Releasing
tell us where you're calling from.
We got pins to drop. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show with Brian Smith. You could find that just like you can this podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your pods.